navy blue of Victoria.
He uses his feet and goes again through mid-wicket. That's an even better shot from the Victorian captain.
Swept away very nicely by Nicole Bolton for four.
Oh, he's been given! That is 50. The man from Northcote.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Vic State Cricket Podcast. This is a bit different today because, well, sometimes this guest is our co-host of the Vic State Cricket Podcast, but today he's the subject. He's the special guest. He is Matt Short. Matt, welcome.
Thanks, mate.
Are you a Victorian cricketer now, or are you an Australian cricketer now?
No, definitely still Victorian. I've still sort of come to terms with getting that sort of title, an Australian cricketer, but the Victorian cricketer sounds better for now.
How weird does it feel?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I don't know. Everything sort of happened really quickly the last sort of 12 months, and still sort of coming to terms with everything, and hopefully some more opportunities come up and something to look forward to.
Has your life changed?
Probably not since becoming an Australian player. I think definitely the last sort of 12, 18 months, playing a lot more overseas and different tournaments around the world, that's definitely something I've had to adapt to and something that's been a bit of a challenge. But yeah, so fun at the same time.
So because it's happened so quickly, has that made it easier for you not to overthink it and just go, almost ride the crest of a wave?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, as I said, it all happened so fast. So, yeah, you're right in saying you don't have much time to think about it. You sort of just roll with it. And a lot of those sort of replacement player gigs overseas have been pretty last minute. So it's like you might have plans for something here at home or whatnot, and you sort of gearing up to play for your state or something like that. And then all of a sudden, you're on a tour in South Africa or India or whatnot. So it's I think you're right in saying it's because it happens so quick. You don't have time to think about, and even now, like as busy as I am now, it's still hard to look back at the last sort of 12 months and think about what's happened. And as I said, it doesn't really stop from now on.
I want to talk about that whole last 12 to 18 months, and I know you've spoken about it a little bit, but more in depth about the change in your life, the change in your cricket career with what's taken place, but just that whole, I guess, adaptability of going from not just state to state, but country to country. There was a situation where you were playing in South Africa, came back. You might have to remember this yourself. It might be hard. You then came and played some Australia A games up in Queensland against New Zealand A. Then all of a sudden back to India.
Yeah.
Maybe even at one point thinking you might have been playing in a World Cup, and then all of a sudden back playing Shield cricket. A lot of batsmen can sometimes use that as an excuse not to play well, that it's not a settled environment. You're chopping and changing from red ball to white ball, up the order, down the order. But you've proven that it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds like a bit of a whirlwind. I guess I kind of found myself in a bit of form, probably off the back of a couple of, might have been 2 big bashes ago, and then into the start of, continuing our Shield season and one-day season in Victoria. I think it was early last year, which I think really kick-started the last 12 months, I suppose. And you mentioned sort of going from top of the order to middle and white ball and red ball, but I think I was just in this sort of form zone or something. I don't even know what it was, but I was just playing continuous cricket. There was no breaks, so I sort of felt like I was pretty set. And once I was in that form, it was like just continued on sort of wherever I was or whatever I was playing in. So it's definitely something that I find hard to explain, how to stay in that form or in that zone. I guess all cricketers do, like they feel like they're up and down and whatnot. But I think that's probably the reason, coming off that good form in the Big Bash and then into the state season, it was just that continuous cricket from then on I think kept me in good stead.
So, because a lot of people don't realise you are 28 years of age and you've been pretty much in the state squad for 10 years. It's all sort of happened, I guess, on the bigger stage quite quickly and quite abruptly, if you like. But I want to take you back to the game the famous Victorian game, the COVID game, where there was about 28 players that all represented Victoria in that match, and you weren't in the 11. You were left out. And I remember watching you just from afar, thinking, where is Matt's career at? To be left out of the 11 when there was high hopes that you were going to almost become a leader of the team quite quickly with other players leaving.
Yep.
When you were told you weren't in that team initially, was that a crossroads moment for you? Was it a whack you needed, or how can you remember back to that time?
Yeah, I do remember. I think even before, like going back before that, even a couple of years, like I was steady. I was wasn't smashing it out of the park, and I wasn't going badly. I was just like a fringe player that sort of did a bit here and there, without opening anyone's eyes or anything like that. So, and that went on for quite a long time. I was just that average player that played a role, and then probably fair enough that I got dropped in the end. Performances weren't there and whatnot, but it probably was a bit of an eye opener, and I ended up sort of making a few changes off field. I remember sort of moving house closer. I probably lived about 40 minutes away. I ended up moving closer into St Kilda, 4 or 5 minutes from the junction, just so I could be in and around the junction more and train more and really prioritise a few more things. I ended a couple of relationships as well off field that was probably another sort of sacrifice that I think I had to make for myself, and to really focus on me and trying to get back in the side, I guess. And I think those sort of sacrifices or changes I made off the field have really helped in sort of getting to where I am now, and I guess cementing my spot in the Victorian team. Did
you feel the clock was ticking, or did you feel that no, this is just a reset type situation for you?
Definitely a reset. I think I was still pretty young. I think I was 26, 27. Still knew I had plenty of years to go. I guess it was just one of those sort of form slumps, or I definitely didn't think it was the end of the road or anything. Plenty of people have gotten dropped before me and have made it back in. So I just took it on the chin and pretty much said, what do I need to do to get back in? Or I don't want to be a player that's on the edge or getting dropped all the time or in and out. I want to be known as someone that can win games for Victoria and contribute in a big way. So made those sort of sacrifices and put a bit more effort into training and myself, and I think it's started to pay off.
So, because I think everyone can learn from these sorts of things where a player is going along, whether it's local cricket or state cricket, sort of middling. I think you described it really well. You weren't going badly, but you weren't going overwhelmingly well. You're just in that sort of yellow zone, if you like. Is it something that a coach or a senior player can say something to you to spark you, or is it something that actually has to come from within you to say enough's enough? I've got to make something of what I've got.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both. Obviously, getting dropped was pretty much the coach saying, we need more from you, which was fair enough, and I accepted that. And then I guess it was up to me to, figure out what I need to do, and that was make those sacrifices. And obviously, the coach doesn't drop you and then doesn't talk to you for a few weeks or whatever. It's like you dropped because you're not performing, which was fair enough, and then you can sort of use your resources, use the coach and other players around you to work out for yourself, what do I need to do? So, that was to work harder, train more, figure out what I sort of need to do. And so it wasn't like I was hung out to dry and that was it. I was very lucky to, I guess I'm proud, not lucky, I was proud of the way I sort of handled it. And, because I was very lucky, I guess, through the early years of my career, we had a great side and I was, batting through the middle and a couple of starts here and there, which were okay at the time because there were a lot of other players that were dominating and we were winning games. And, it sort of just come to a stage where, those sort of 30s and 40s and 50s weren't enough. And the inconsistency wasn't good enough. So, to be dropped was fair enough. But it was probably, as I said, it was probably more myself that, had to think about what I need to do.
So there's this, I won't say it's a famous conversation, but it's a well-told conversation between yourself and Chris Rogers about, I guess, unlocking your talents and the talk of freeing you up, freeing your mind up, just letting you play and almost having a license to be a more aggressive player and not get not so much paralysed at the crease, but just the fear of getting out potentially. I'd like you to share what happened. But was that significant, do you think, when you look back on it now?
I think so. I mean, when Bucky came in as head coach, we had a couple of good pre-seasons where we really tried to knuckle down a certain technique. I was open to trying a few things and in the end probably didn't work out. I was probably too far away from what felt natural or, physically what felt natural, and then, out in the field, probably felt, mentally like, probably doubting myself or fearing of getting out. And then it probably was maybe 2 or 3 seasons after Buck came in, and we just said, look, you just play how you want to play. I'd had a couple of good big bash seasons, and that was just being free and seeing the ball and hitting the ball, and we sort of had a good couple of conversations around how we can kind of bring that freedom into the red ball, and that was obviously batting through the middle and obviously not playing as mad as you do in a T20 game, but sort of going away from that kind of robotic feel to, just being free-flowing and feeling as natural as I could and taking that out into the middle for the red ball. So I guess we kind of went away from what we were working on in the nets those couple of pre-seasons to Bucky sort of just giving me the freedom and giving that kind of trying to put the pressure back on the other team kind of role.
Do you think cricket is more mental or physical? From a batting point of view, having gone through the challenges you've gone through now, where you see yourself at, which you're right. I mean, you're in the middle of your career, you're right in the sweet spot, but with what you've learnt in the last sort of 12 to 18 months?
I think now, at this stage of my career, it's definitely more mental. I guess, when you're an early teenager and you're still developing and, you're in all these junior squads and that, I think you spend a lot of time on your physical game and, how does my cover drive look, or am I getting forward or back enough and whatever. I think that's good to work on a lot of the physical stuff as a youngster. But I think once you go through the ranks and you're at this level, I think a lot of the physical stuff's there, and it's whatever sort of feels natural for you. And then a lot of the hard work that you don't normally learn about as a youngster in the mental side of the game is probably more important. Whether it's fighting the demons of getting out or focusing on one ball. It's pretty cliche, but you don't want to think about the last ball or what's coming up or the scoreboard or anything. It's just staying in the moment, I think, is the big challenge.
So did you, with the change and I guess the licence from Chris, does a checklist come as a result of that for you to then, with all the things you coached, all the things that you're trying to do to improve yourself, that you use out there in the middle or the night before a game? Or is it, again, the secret not to think too much and just see ball and hit ball?
I think I try and keep it as simple as possible. I don't have a checklist or any sort of pre-ball routines. I do sort of focus on if I feel my mind's going elsewhere or thinking about something it shouldn't, trying to sort of snap onto that as quick as I can and get rid of it and refocus. I guess that's what that is. I guess the more I can train that, the better I get at it. And it is something that you have to train. It's not like sometimes you're off with the fairies or you're thinking about the wrong thing and, it might take you 5-10 minutes to zone in again. Yep. I think the more you train it, that 5-10 minutes of being off with the fairies might be 5 seconds.
Yeah. How do you train it?
Oh, it's just repetitive. I think you can do it at training, but it's more in games when there's more pressure. If I feel like, I can't do this, can't do that, or I'm going to go out, if I can lock onto that quickly, I guess that's training as I'm going on. But it's tough. It's tough to explain, but I guess the more I can stay focused at the right times, the better off I'll be.
And I guess the other part of that is then the clarity of role and also the backing of the coaching team to say, this is your strengths, go out and just play to your strengths. So I would imagine that almost makes you feel lighter going out into the middle, knowing that if I do attempt to play the big cover drive and I'm 12 not out and do nick it, it's like, well, that's not so much that's the way I play, because that can sometimes be an out, but but you've got that sort of, in a way, that license and that freedom to do it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Buck's been really good with that, and the coaching staff. That's my natural sort of gameplay, is to be more aggressive. But we speak a lot about intent and sort of going through different phases. So phase one would be, batting for a draw, and you're not playing any shots. You're literally batting you're not trying to score runs, which can happen in games. And that's what you sort of have to adapt to. But then I guess phase two to phase three is probably where I want to sort of see myself batting through the middle there. It's having that positive intent. It's not, obviously you want to hit boundaries if the ball's there, but even the good balls, you want to still kind of have that good intent to maybe push for a 1 or a 2. As I said before, like putting the pressure back on the other team. If they bowl a good ball, it's still, standing up to like using my height and sticking to my strengths and maybe pushing that good ball through the cover for 1 or 2. And then all of a sudden you do that a couple of times and, the other team or the bowler has to change and do something else. So, and that might free you up even more. So it's, I guess, going through the phases, but maybe sticking to 1 or 2, phase 2 or 3 is the way sort of I want to play.
Yeah. So when we look at it at the moment, I actually wrote some notes for this. You're up to 54 first-class matches now. You've got your batting average up to 34 with 400, so it's definitely trending in the right direction. And then when we look at the white ball stuff, 63 list day games now with an average of 33, and then the T20s, 2,400 runs now through nearly 100 T20s at 26 with a strike rate of 143. That they are significant numbers. Do you think you are a white ball specialist, or do you still feel that the red ball, where you sort of started your career, is still the best form of the game for you?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I find it hard to answer. I definitely see myself as an all 3 format player.
Yep.
But yeah, as you said, like I started playing probably predominantly red ball and sort of fell in love a lot more with the red ball. Because as a youngster, I didn't play too much sort of growing up. It was more sort of one days and and stuff like that. So yeah, kind of fell in love with the red ball and probably struggled early on in the Big Bash for sure. Sort of batting through the middle and probably, to be honest, was thrown in to the Big Bash a bit early. Like I didn't really know what I was doing back then. So that took me a good few years to get used to and sort of figure out how to play T20 really. I think, and then probably getting that confidence of the last few years from the Big Bash and then scoring some runs for Victoria. It's it's a bit of a strange one. Fell in love with red ball early on and then started going pretty well with the Big Bash and white ball cricket, and then kind of like caught up with the red ball, and then as I kept going well in Big Bash, like the red ball, you sort of creeps away and you play some T20 games around the world and it's like, oh, should I stick with this? And then you get a couple of hundreds in the red ball and you're like, oh no, it catches up again, and you start to enjoy it a bit more. It's it's a bit of a roller coaster.
Because the reason I asked you the question, and I'm not trying to be cheeky or put words into your mouth, but the amount of money that's now there for specialist white ball players is quite extraordinary. And Tim David, who is an Australian teammate of yours, is certainly one of those, I guess, poster boys in 2024 for that sort of thing. And now Davey Warner's going to do what he does as almost like a freelance player. Mm-hmm. But for you, do you still see you very much, I want to play Test cricket for Australia, that's first and foremost now? Or do you see it as a not a temptation, but it's there. I know I play white ball cricket well. I know I hit the ball harder than anyone pretty much in Australia. That's a temptation.
It is a temptation, you're right. But I'm 28. I'm still enjoying playing for Victoria and playing Shield cricket. Playing Test cricket's definitely the ultimate still for me. You see guys like Davey Warner, for example. He's obviously been a genius for a long time in all three formats, so he sort of earned the right to do what he's doing now. And that's probably something I want to kind of follow in that regard, is still give myself a good 3-4 years at red ball cricket and see if I can make it. But then at the same time, hopefully the white ball stuff's still going well. And there'll probably be a time where I'm early 30s and maybe Test cricket's not for me anymore. And hopefully some white ball opportunities after that. But at this stage, for a good 3 or 4 more years, I'll definitely keep focusing on the red ball as well.
Do you see yourself as a batting all-rounder or a batsman when it comes to red ball cricket?
I think definitely a batting all-rounder. I like to see myself as. It probably hasn't shown. Well, it's probably not the last couple of years with the ball. Always handy to come in and bowl some overs here and there to help out wherever. But I guess the opportunities the last few years probably haven't arose to bowl, big 20-over spells or anything like that. We've obviously got some young quicks come through, and we've had Johnny Holland and Toddy Murphy at the moment as well. So it's hard to get those longer spells in. But something I'm always sort of working on, and it's always good to have those other sort of strings in bow.
Because the reason I asked the question is, me as a watcher of cricket, I see a great opportunity in Test cricket for you at number 6, potentially even at number 5. And, we see where Mitch Marsh is going. He's going so well in that all-rounder role at the moment, but he can't play forever. And, there's Subcontinental Tour next year as well. There are opportunities there for you in the red ball cricket as well as the white ball cricket, which we'll get to shortly, that you've already had. So I was just interested as whether that's something that you're really zeroing in on and saying, this is what I want, or is it, if it happens, it happens. I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing and living the moment, which is working for you really well at the moment, going with that process.
Yeah, and I think I've always had that in my career. It's probably going back to when I worked with Greg Chappell back in the academy days.
Yep.
It was probably sort of 18, 19-year-old coming through the academy, and he always said, it was probably more talking about contracts and whatnot and money off the field, and he's like, if you just focus on what you're doing on the field, then everything else will take care of itself. So that's kind of stuck with me, all through, whether it be negotiating a contract or if I think too far ahead about being selected for this tour or this whatever. So I guess I'm putting that into perspective now, and there is some older guys in the Test team that, who knows how long they'll have left, but I'm not saying now, all right, I need that spot. What am I going to do to get that spot? It's just, as he said, stay in the moment and focus on what I'm doing now, and hopefully score some more runs, and who knows what will happen.
And I think that's fair to think like that, because as I was saying before, it was 14 or 15 months ago we were talking about how you're out of the Victorian team and now you're in the Australian team. So it shows how quickly things can change. And sometimes it's right place, right time. That's all it is. That can be the difference.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there's been a couple of Aussie tours where, the big boys have probably come off a big tour. I think they had India Tests, World Cup and Ashes last year.
World Test Championship.
No, World Test Championship, sorry.
Yeah, as well.
So, and then a lot of those guys get rested. So then they sort of bring up a couple of younger guys or guys that haven't been around as much. So I guess that's been huge in a way for me, to be able to sneak in there, and hopefully that's just the start of once those guys are done, then this next crop can come through and hopefully take over. So there's definitely going to be some opportunity.
So putting the green and gold on, strapping on the gold pads and going out to bat for Australia, that's what everyone dreams of doing that's played cricket in the backyard, let alone play for Victoria. What was it like? Was it what you thought it would be in your dreams as a kid?
Not really. I mean, it was a weird one because came off the IPL and then I played in the US and then played in the 100. So it was all just happening so fast and all new to me. And then on the back of the 100, it was straight to South Africa for the T20. So I was like, it was like just another new experience to go through. And it was awesome. I mean, we had a 3-game series against South Africa. It was quick, but it was probably obviously better than playing in all those other tournaments because you're playing for your country. But to be around guys that you know, they sort of made it a really sort of welcoming and really fun environment to be around. So Mitch Marsh was captain, and it was just a really fun experience. And I wasn't as nervous as I thought it would be going out there. I think I said on this podcast before, I was batting with Travis Head and he took the first ball and played and missed, and if he got onto it, it would have gone out of the ground. And I'm like, this is international cricket. Like, here we go. Hit the next one for 6 and then went out the next ball. So I was like, this is it. Like, how fun's this? Just an awesome time.
So then going in, because I feel it's different when you play for Australia at home and watching you play and do really well in a handful of matches this summer. Again, wearing the green and gold, but playing in front of the home crowd, free-to-air television, all those sorts of things. As a Victorian cricket fan, I think of Dean Jones doing that and Brad Hodge doing that, from a batting point of view at least. But here's Matt Short going out there to play for Australia at the top of the order or in the middle order, which we'll get to shortly. What was that like? Was that different again?
Yeah, that probably felt better. We played a one-day game at the MCG, which was my first game for Australia in Australia. And then, we had, I think Sutho debuted in that game.
No, he was in Sydney.
He was in Sydney, yeah, sorry. But just to have like family and friends come to be able to watch me play for Australia was cool. And to be at the MCG, like home ground, was awesome. And I didn't end up batting or bowling in that game, so that was a bit disappointing. But to be able to walk out there and say you've played for Australia on the MCGs, a pretty cool experience. And
then at the SCG to get some runs and to be, right in amongst it. That's I sort of feel like that was, for me, the moment where you go, yep, Matt Short, an Australian player.
Yeah,
was that for you? Was that a similar sort of feeling?
I reckon you're right. Yeah, I definitely gained some confidence from that. I think when people think of me in white ball cricket, he's an opening bat for the strikers, and that's all he does or whatever. And then to play through the middle there, and I think we were struggling a fair bit. So I got a 40. Just sort of, I think me and Aaron Harding and Sean Abbott smacked him at the end to sort of help us get to a total. I definitely gained a lot of confidence. I was sort of proud of myself to be able to, say that I'm not only an opening batsman, I can bat through the middle and help us get out of some tough positions. And I was happy with that one.
Which leads me to, I guess, a big debate that everyone's having about you in white ball cricket. Are you an opener or are you a middle order player? Because as everyone has seen, you've succeeded at the top of the order in white ball cricket, but the opportunities to play regularly for Australia might be in the middle order. So take us through what's going on behind the scenes and let everyone know, are you being remodelled, or is this just another string to your bow that you can do multiple roles?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to when I started out with Victoria. It was always batting through the middle in white ball cricket. So I've done it plenty of times. It's only sort of just recent, the last few years, that started opening the batting at the strikers, and then getting the opportunity here in Victoria. I guess it's just a waiting game with the Aussies. The communication there is, we've got a stacked top order, so if you were to play with the team at full strength, it probably is through the middle. That being said, there has been opportunities where a spot has opened up at the top of the order, but I guess they're sort of sticking with me through the middle at this stage while there is those guns still available. That's sort of the chat around that. Ronnie's been really clear with that. If a spot does open up, then they'll see how I go there. And but yeah, for now, if I am to get in with a full strength side, then it is through the middle.
So does that mean you do anything differently? Or do you feel with the foundation you've got as fundamentally a middle order player that you've got the skills and experience to be able to succeed in that spot should it become yours on a permanent basis?
Yeah, I like to think that I would back myself to play wherever. It is obviously different coming in through the middle than it is at the top of the order. Opening the batting is always the same. There's always two guys out. You're facing a new ball. The score's none for none. Whereas, coming through the middle, you could have any scenario. So I guess that's where you have to adapt and play how the game's going. It might be coming in the last 5 overs and you have to slog them, or like the one-day game in Sydney, it might be coming in the 20th over and you have to try and rebuild again. So I guess that's where you have to be smart and trying to adapt to what's in front of you.
But that's, we were talking about it before, that's one of your great strengths is the adaptability. So, I mean, it kind of can set you up to be a very versatile player, which is handy to have. It's handy to be, but it's handy for Andrew McDonald to have at his disposal that you can do a variety of different roles for him.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I need to focus on at this stage of my career, and if that's where I'm seeing at the moment in the Aussie colours, it's trying to transition from that opener and actually use cricket smarts, and depending on what that situation is, sort of dictates how you have to go about it. So I guess being a good middle order player is all about adapting and sort of setting up the team for a big total, but it is very different to opening, that's for sure.
Have you gravitated towards anyone in the Australian team? Has anyone kind of tried to take you under their wing, or has there been particular players that you've tried to get as much information out of as possible? Use the resources on offer? Yeah,
I mean, in terms of sort of having fun, like Travis Head and Mitch Marsh are been good to sort of hang out with and see how they go about it, not only in the white ball, but I guess I sort of see myself in their roles in the red ball as well, just with that freedom. But I guess I've spoken to Marcus Stoinis. I've got a good relationship with him, obviously through Victoria and the Northcote Dragons as well, because he sort of went through a similar thing. He sort of dominated the Big Bash as an opener for a couple of years there, and then I think sort of found himself in the Aussie team, but through the middle. So he sort of had to change that as well, as that kind of finisher towards the end of an innings. So trying to lean on him a little bit with some advice and just chatting around, why aren't I opening, or what do I need to do now? And so he's been a good one. Probably those guys.
And the extra exposure and attention, how have you coped with that?
Yeah, fine. I mean, it's obviously good to be recognised and whatnot, but I'm a pretty laid back kind of guy and don't really let it get to me. But the boys give me a bit of stick on social media or in the change rooms for being a bit too full on social media. But while you're running pretty hot, you're going to get some people come to you for some things, and I'll say thank you and give them a little post or whatever online, and away you go.
The problem now is that you're being described as being involved as a power couple. Now you're engaged and you're about to become a dad. You're engaged to an Olympian for 10 years, Olympian. But then now all of a sudden now you're in social pages as opposed to just in cricket pages, mate.
Yeah. Oh, it's a funny world, but Maddie's used to it. As you said, she's been around for a long time, and as a good-looking female swimmer, she's going to get a lot of attention. So she's used to it. But we've got a very balanced lifestyle, and then as you said, we've got a pretty busy sort of 12 months coming up now. So with the wedding early next year as well. So it's all happening, but we're loving life off the field.
We're talking, of course, of Maddie Wilson, who is your fiancée. I think that's what you say.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of impact has she had on you as being a professional athlete, or being in another sport, but for 10 years? So similar sort of length of career as yours, but as a swimmer, as an Olympian, gold medalist, these sorts of things, is it easier to be able to relate to someone else who's also a professional athlete, or someone you bounce off, or do you try and keep it separate?
No, we don't keep it separate. We definitely talk about each other's careers and how we deal with different things. It's definitely nice to relate to some similarities, whether it be how you deal with time away, or sort of the stresses of different kind of things. But swimmers are just built differently. I don't know how they do it. Their training regime's just like out of this world. I don't even know how she does it, but it's a tough one, because I'm away at some stages, she's away, and we both know that it's going to settle down at some stage. So we're just sort of cruising along and taking what comes at the moment. As I said, she's due in early September now, or late August. So she's kind of coming out of her career as mine's sort of starting to take off. So that's probably another challenge we're going to work through. And, I'm probably sort of, she's obviously had 10 years swimming for Australia and been to 2 Olympics. So I'm kind of feeding off her for advice and, how to deal with playing, representing your country. Whereas we're sort of facing different challenges with her sort of finishing her career a little bit unexpectedly. So, we're working through things, but it's all fun and games.
Well, I mean, it has to be challenging. I remember speaking to you about this time last year, and you were saying how, look, I'm have a pretty quiet winter. Just sort of, have some time off and, get ready for a big Shield season. And as you said, you ended up going to the IPL unexpectedly, then went on to the 100, then played for Australia. When you were going to be sitting on the couch watching the footy and getting ready for indoor net. So it just shows how quickly things can change. It's hard to plan.
Yeah, and that's something that Mads and I we continuously say to each other is we've got all these plans for, next week and next month and a couple of months. But then we have to be really flexible because, as you said, these things can pop up, whatever time. So we're really good at making plans. Whether or not they actually come to fruition, it's a different story.
Well, I guess if plans are being sort of thrown out the door, it's probably a good sign for you that things are happening and you're being asked to play in different tournaments for different teams. So just finishing up on the Victorian team. So it's a massive game coming up against Western Australia here at the City Power Centre. Win and you're in. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. You've had some really bad luck in Sydney and then a strange game against Tassie with violent fluctuations in the way the game played out. How is the team feeling going into next week?
Yeah, we're really confident. I wasn't involved in the game in Sydney, but I was over in New Zealand and looking at the Sydney radar, and I was like, oh, they're not getting on here. I think we need 2 wickets in 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. That was a bit unlucky. And then to do as well as we did in that second innings down in Tassie gives us confidence that, whatever the total is, we can give it a good crack. We know we're thereabouts. It's pretty much do or die now, isn't it? So it's Perth or WA always a tough opposition, but the boys are still feeling pretty confident.
What's been the messaging from Chris Rogers? Because you had this great momentum either side of the Big Bash break, but it's often hard to get momentum back after a break, but you're able to do that to remind everybody that the form's actually okay, even though there hasn't been maximum points in the last 2 games.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in those games, there's probably a couple of small moments, like small as in like probably half an hour moments that are just probably the most crucial moments of the game. So that we're just not quite nailing. But for the rest of the game, rest of the 3 or 4 days, it's we're doing all right. So our losses or our draws haven't been massive losses or anything like that. So we're thereabouts. But if we can sort of tighten up on those sort of small half-hour moments, I think we'll be fine.
Because you've been busy off doing other things, not more important things, but other things. What have you noticed? Where has some of the improvement come from some of the younger players while you've been on national duties?
I think it's not only the young players; it's a good mix. And I think it sort of stems from Nick Maddinson. He was probably been a big loss the last 12 months, whatever it's been, but you can see how dominant he can be, 300s in 3 games, and then we've got a good crop of young blokes that have got a decent amount of games under the belt. I think Bucky was sort of reeling them off the other day. I think Suther's pushing 50.
Yep.
Harpsy's pushing 50. Pez has 30 or 40. Even Ferg's close to 20 now, I think. So just our young players that have played in Shield finals before, and they've just got a lot more experience and relying on them as well. So it's a good mix of the old guys doing their job and the young guys stepping up as well.
And I think it would be quite a remarkable achievement if you were able to make a 3rd consecutive final with what is such a young. Also, say it's more a transitioning sort of team with the team that you used to play with, as you were talking about before, compared to what it is now. It is very different. But through that time, to still make 3 finals in a row would be a stunning achievement.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, going back to that first one, we were super young and very inexperienced. So that was an awesome achievement in itself. But 3 in a row, I think we're at a really good stage now where we should really be pushing for the win and in years to come as well. I don't see us sort of slowing down at all with what we've got, even on the sidelines as well. So, I think Victorian cricket's looking really good. And
just finally, your aims for this year. There's obviously a T20 World Cup in the West Indies and the USA, which would be an extraordinary thing to be part of. Is that central to your aims and ambitions, or again, is it just let's just go the game against Western Australia, the Shield game, and see what happens after that? Yeah, you're right, mate. I think the primary focus is Shield cricket at the moment. Get through the next couple of weeks and hopefully a final, and hopefully the rest takes care of itself. But as I said, it's hard to plan things in the future, and you never know what's going to happen. So it's just focus on this game now and put all my effort into that. And then who knows, it might be a 2-3 month break. You never know. So just putting all my effort into what's coming up. Well, I know there are a lot of cricket fans here in Victoria that are so proud of you with what you've been able to do over the last 18 months, and it is really exciting to watch you in the green and gold for Australia. So congratulations on not only getting in there, but also performing as you have. You've made a lot of people really proud. Now it's time to do it for Victoria over the next couple of weeks. Let's see what happens. See how we go. Thanks, mate. Matt Short joining us on the Vic State Cricket Podcast. Not a co-host, a guest. We'll catch you again soon.